Hey guys, this is Jessica Burdeaux and Matt Jordan over at Reverb, and today we're going to show you how to tune and mic a drum set for 5 different genres.
We'll walk through everything from the mic setup to the drum tuning to mixing tips. So without further ado, let's get started.
Star wipe.
All right, so let's talk about classic rock, specifically the Glyn Johns technique. Glyn Johns is a really well-known producer and engineer who worked with some of the most famous classic rock bands of the 60s and 70s. His drum miking technique only takes 3 microphones. There's a dedicated kick drum mic as well as 2 ribbon mics. One is placed right above the snare drum, kind of capturing the whole kit. The other one is off to the side, peeking over the floor tom, looking right at the hi-hat. Both are spaced equally about 40 to 60 inches away from the snare to avoid phasing issues. So with this technique, you're gonna get a big, boomy, classic rock drum sound. It's not very articulate. There's no close mics involved aside from the kick drum. All you need to do in the mixing phase, maybe EQ a little bit, maybe compress a little bit, and just bring all of those faders up so that all 3 channels are the same volume.
For our classic rock sound, we're going to want a wide open medium tuning, our resonant heads to be pitched slightly higher than our batter heads, and then also a little bit of muffling on our kick and snare.
All right, let's talk about miking up a drum kit for jazz. Again, we're only gonna utilize 3 microphones here. We've got a pair of small diaphragm condensers right above the kit in an XY pattern at 90 degrees. That's gonna give us a nice stereo image of the whole kit, but not too wide. And then we've got a Shure KSM 353 ribbon on the kick. It's gonna give us a nice, warm, round, punchy kick drum.
So for our jazz tuning, we brought the pitch of all of our heads up and then took the muffling off of the kick drum and the snare.
Next, we're gonna cover indie rock and folk. We're gonna use 4 microphones in this setup. We've got a spaced pair of ribbons that are equidistant from the snare behind me. We've got a Shure KSM 353 ribbon on the kick and then an SM57 on the snare. So when mixing, we're gonna rely more heavily on the spaced pair of ribbons and then add the kick and the snare mics to taste. This is gonna give us a really dry but open sound. And the reason we have the mics behind the kit is to strike a better balance between the drums and the cymbals since we're only using 4 microphones.
For our indie folk rock sound, we have a much deeper tuning on all of our drums, heavy muffling on our snare, moderate muffling on our kick drum and our toms, and that's going to achieve a darker, drier sound.
So next up, we're gonna cover the smooth, dry, tight drum kit sound that was so prevalent in the 70s. What we're doing is we're close miking each drum. So we're using a kick, snare, rack tom, and floor tom mic. They're all dynamic microphones, and a spaced pair of overheads, which are small diaphragm condensers. In the mix of this one, we're probably going to be favoring the close mics over the overheads to get that really tight, punchy, hit you in the face type of sound.
For our smooth 70s drum kit sound, we added towels to the heads to dampen them and kill a lot of that sustain. And we did the same for the bass drum, but we removed the head and stuffed it with this synthetic sheep-like item.
Next, we're gonna cover a miking setup for a standard modern rock drum kit. We have a Shure Beta 52A in the kick drum, an SM57 on the snare. We also have close mics on the rack and the floor toms. We also have a pair of small diaphragm condensers as overheads, spaced equidistant from the snare, but in a spaced pair configuration, and a pair of room mics, which are Shure KSM 313 ribbons. So the first thing you'll notice in this configuration is we're using a lot more microphones. The reason for that is the name of the game is control in modern music. So if we hit a chorus or a hook and we want to bring those room mics up to make it sound more explosive, we can. We also have focus tones for each individual drum because we're using close mics on each one.
For a modern rock sound, we want medium-low tuning with moderate muffling on the kick and snare to keep it nice and punchy.
All right, so there you have it. There's 5 different ways to mic a drum kit for 5 different genres. We hope you can take what you learned in this video and apply it to your own recording.
As always, all of these mics are available on Reverb.com. Let us know what you think in the comments, and we'll see you next time.